So day two of the World Economic Forum has touched on some of the big issues, some of the main themes that are being discussed here in Davos. Certainly the word globalization being one that we've heard again and again. Many around these halls have been talking about other issues, though, not just the slowing global economy, but perhaps some have been mentioning the global refugee crisis and the need to put it more on the map. Certainly at the beginning of the World Economic Forum yesterday, we heard from a Somali refugee who also happens to be a co-chair of this year's forum. His message was quite simple. He says, give refugees a chance or face a lost generation. An urgent appeal to the business community gathered here to invest more in refugees and give them equal access to opportunities. Well, let's discuss all of this further with Kelly Clements. She is the UN Deputy High Commissioner for Refugees, and she's joining us now. Kelly Clements, more than 70 million refugees around the world, many of them in desperate need of more investment, not just emergency relief. Did you sense an appetite, though, among the business leaders who you've met here, an appetite to invest in this issue?
You know, I really have. This is not my first time in Davos and in discussions with the private sector, but what we're really seeing is that the international community is now recognizing that with the situation of forcibly displaced in the world, the record numbers since World War II, that we really need to see change in terms of how we support them, how do we support host countries, how do we support host communities, in terms of looking at refugees not as passive aid recipients, but as assets in communities, as economic drivers, as those that are able to actually support themselves, their families, and actually boost an economy in a hosting community.
How much is the mindset around here changing from looking at refugees essentially as a security threat, as a financial burden, to looking at them in more human terms, but also in financial terms, as an opportunity, as you say?
I think we can look at it in sectoral terms as well. If you look at how refugees are seen as drivers, look at issues related to education, for example, and what Mohammed said yesterday to the assembled Davos. Education is at the core of looking at the future of a population and a future of a community. It then means that they're going to contribute back. If you look at issues related to connectivity for refugees, you can't just connect refugees, you connect those host communities that may also be underserved. They are then also customers, they're clients, in addition to participants in these programs.
And when you talk about connecting refugees, you talk about all the innovation, the technology that can be tapped into in order to help them. It's a major theme at this year's forum, the so-called fourth industrial revolution. Can technology be a major tool that can actually help refugees?
It really can, regardless of whether or not we're talking about energy or we're talking about education. Technology comes to play. When we're looking at education, we're not just talking about more bricks and mortar schoolhouses. We're also talking about ways to connect those rural populations, those refugees that may be in communities, providing them the tools and the access to be able to seek a university degree when they're not necessarily in a place that has a university. Connected learning, blended learning is a big part of what we're trying to do here, and technology is at the core.
And you've said in the past that the humanitarian dimension of your work will have a major gap if there isn't the driving force of the business community. How would you rate the importance of the business community versus the importance of the public sector doing more on this issue?
So one is not more important than the other. Both need to come to play. The Global Compact on Refugees that was just adopted last month by the General Assembly has a firm role for both. It has the Sustainable Development Goals at its root, and it has the drivers related to education, related to what the private sector that might be able to commit, but it knows that solutions are not possible if we don't look at both refugees and hosts, and if we don't have all playing a part in terms of the solution.